On this theme of misogyny and in elections, one of the most common questions that I got when I asked followers was from an enormous number of young women who frankly were galvanized by your loss in a way that they had not been galvanized by your campaign. And they want to go out
right.
and change the world.
Right.
In many cases by public service. But they're anxious about the nastiness of being in public life, especially for women. And in some cases, I think they're concerned about the research that some social scientists have pointed to, that women can be perceived as either likable or as competent leaders, but not as both.
Yes. Well, that is part of what I meant earlier about the change. And let me just address that, because I'm going to spend a lot of my time encouraging young people, particularly young women, to go into politics, to go into public service, because I believe I believe that not only is it a worthy and very satisfying way to contribute, make a living, learn more, but we really need you. And we need more young people, and we particularly need more young women. So I'm going to work with some of the organizations that are springing up. I'm going to work with those that have been around for a while to see how I can reach out, recruit, help train, mentor, advise people to do this. However, having said that, probably one of the first things I would say to them, as I would say to this great conference, yeah, be ready. It is not a new phenomenon, but it feels new and painful every time it happens to you. And so one of my favorite Americans, Eleanor Roosevelt, said, good grief, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, 70 years ago now, more than that, that every woman who enters the public arena needs to grow skin as thick as the hide of a rhinoceros. And boy, do I relate to that. Because the research you just referred to, Nick, and Sheryl Sandberg wrote about this in her last book, Lean In, but many, many academics have written about it. And it's a pretty simple but unfortunate phenomenon. With men, success and ambition are correlated with likability. So the more successful a man is, the more likable he becomes. With a woman, guess what? It's the exact opposite. So the more successful and therefore ambitious a woman is, the less likable she becomes. That's the inverse correlation that lies at the heart of a lot of the attacks and the misogyny, and it's unconscious. It's not like people, say to themselves, well, she's ambitious, she's successful, therefore I don't like her anymore. But the way our politics is structured and high-level public positions, that seems to be sort of baked into the reality. So when I think about, I left the State Department as Secretary of State. I had like a 65% approval rating. People thought I had really done a good job, which I was, very touched by. And it was a job that I was asked to do by a man, President Obama, right? So I did it to the best of my ability and came out, and some people said at the time, the most popular public official or high-profile public person in politics in the country. Well, what happened? Oh my gosh, by the time they finished with me, I was Typhoid Mary. And poor Mary, I mean, she didn't deserve it either when you go back and look at the history. So, so what happened? Well, I said, I think I could be a really good president for our country at this point in our history, and I think I will run for president. And so, from that moment, all of a sudden, from that high point of being the Secretary of State of the United States of America, I became a candidate seeking the highest office in the land and asking people to support me. And even people who had supported me in the media during my time as Secretary of State or even as Senator, all of a sudden it's like, who is she? What does she want? I always feel like I'm, in Waiting for Godot. I mean, I've been around, and some people say too long, and other people say, well, we don't know her. I mean, I have a pretty long record of who I am and what I stand for and what I've done, but it really did verify, unfortunately, that research. So I guess the final thing is, I want you to be involved. I am thrilled by all the activity that's going on, recruiting young people to run, showing up at town halls, making tens of thousands of phone calls that helped derail that terrible health care bill that the House Republicans were working on. But toughen up your skin. Take criticism seriously, but not personally. In other words, look, I am not perfect. Everybody knows that by now. So I am always open to people saying, well, you should have done that. Or you could. Sometimes I don't quite know how to fix what they're concerned about, but I try. And so I take it seriously, but I don't any longer, and haven't for a long time, take it personally. Because part of the attacks, the personal attacks, part of the bullying, part of the name calling that has certainly become much more pervasive because of the internet, is to crush your spirit, to make you feel inadequate, to make you doubt yourself. And I just refused to do that, and that infuriated them even more.